All right, welcome to everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. I'm really in a rush for this video. Ideally, I would like to take more time. So if by the end of it, I think I need to remake it, I'll try to make it after work. I don't always have time nowadays to do videos like that, but so I'll try to plow through this as quick as I can. Now, one of my subscribers recently, or I think more than once, has made reference to uh, this guy on YouTube who's quite popular now. I think he's got maybe 500,000 subscribers. If you go to any of his videos, there's tons of people in the comment sections that seem to be flocking to him and that adore him. Um, I had never watched a lot of this guy's content. I'd seen some of it. It seemed okay, but I learned a lot more about him last night after doing some fact checking. But one of my loyal long-term subscribers, good to see you, man. I won't say who it is. Suggested, I checked this guy out and my subscribers seemed to like him. I felt this little tinge inside. Let me go do some fact checking on this guy first. So I did last night. I'm quite dismayed, and I just want to relay this, not just for the benefit of that one subscriber, but for anybody else out there, because there's a lot of people who are flocking to this guy. His name is Brandon Biggs. He's got a YouTube channel called Last Days, and he famously is the one. I wouldn't term it like this, but a lot of people on YouTube are saying he's like the famous guy who prophesied the attempt on Trump's life. So I think right now that that prophecy that the guy relayed about what happened to Trump, everybody knows somebody shot at him. That's so immaterial in light of all the evidence I'm about to describe, that it's not even worth me spending time talking about it. I've seen a lot of videos nitpicking on how he didn't actually accurately foretell what would happen. I really don't care. That it's irrelevant in light of all the evidence I'm going to bring. If you're out there making hundreds of prophecies for years, hundreds if not more, you're going to get something right at some point. I think anybody would have assumed that there would be extremists who would try to take Trump's life. I don't think that's rocket science. It's not far-fetched. Even I was expecting somebody to try and do that, and lo and behold, it did. But anyways, let me get started. So Brandon Biggs, right? And this is, I'm not trying to attack the guy, but it is what it is, and I'm just going to state the facts. I fully believe with more than adequate evidence that Brandon Biggs is a false prophet for very good reasons. I'm not here nitpicking on things that he said and this and that there, like, oh, he claimed this, but it didn't. I don't even have to get into whether he has fulfilled or failed prophecies. I don't really need to even get into that based on all the other evidence that I have. And I'll try to rush through this very quickly. But very quickly first, I just want to mention a few verses here. Jeremiah 14:14 states, "The prophets that are prophesying lies in my name, I have not sent them or appointed them or spoken to them. They are prophesying to you false visions, divinations, idolatries, and delusions of their own minds." And then in Jeremiah 23, it says, "I did not send these prophets, yet they have run with their message. I did not speak to them, yet they have prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel, they would have proclaimed my words to my people and would have turned them from their evil ways and from their deeds." Next, in Deuteronomy 18:20, it says, "But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die." In Deuteronomy 18:22 says this verse, it states, "When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the thing does not happen or come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord has allegedly spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him." And if I'm not mistaken, it prescribes sore, if not capital punishment for false prophets in the Old Testament. Now, 1 Corinthians 14:27. This is about speaking in tongues. That will become relevant soon when I get into the evidence. There's a lot written about speaking in tongues in the New Testament. As I've shared in my videos and in my systematic theology, when the speaking of tongues is introduced in the New Testament, this is in the Pentecost event, and it is clearly stated in those chapters that the people speaking in tongues were speaking foreign languages. Speaking in tongues means a foreign language. It does not mean you babble nonsense at the air and pretend in your mind that it means something from God. That is a bunch of baloney. Speaking in tongues is speaking foreign languages. It is explicitly defined as that in that chapter where it introduces speaking in tongues in the New Testament. Okay? But further to that, the New Testament states that speaking in tongues is useless unless you have an interpreter. So even if God did speak to you in a foreign tongue or even an angelic tongue, let's say, it is worthless information to everybody else unless you have someone there directly to interpret it. Otherwise, you're babbling into the wind. Okay? So the verses that I read shows that, people who are prophesying things that God didn't claim, they're evil. Okay? They're false prophets. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. They're deluded, and they're going to be in sore, if not capital punishment from God for their crimes. It's a very severe thing. Okay? And if someone claims to have made a prophecy that something's going to happen and it doesn't, even just once, that person is a false prophet. Okay? Simple. Now, the problem with Brandon Biggs is he makes hundreds of prophecies. He is always making prophecies about things. Okay? And like I said before, if you lay out a blanket of hundreds of prophecies, like all the time you're making prophecies, you're going to get something right at some point, right? Especially when they're very vague prophecies. They're not always specific in Brandon's case. But here's a list of the evidence that I want to go through. First of all, this is one of the first signs that raises eyebrows, okay? And I'm only comparing him to myself to help illustrate the differences here, okay? It's nothing about me. I have never asked people for money. I've had people offer me money and I've refused it. I would feel bad taking money from people, even if they're doing it out of kindness to help me, okay? And for 10 years on YouTube, I have not taken a penny from anybody, and I've never asked for donations, and I would never ask for donations, okay? I worked my butt off to get my systematic theology published that after 20 years of hard work and study, and I only make a couple dollars in each book. I have stopped collecting the checks for that book. I have also not made much money off of it, okay? So right now, when people buy it, I'm not making anything off of the book, okay? That's my scenario. Now, if you run a church and you need money to upkeep the church and pay, services and for food and this and that there, you can collect money from people if they want to donate it. That's different. But when you have a YouTube channel, okay, and you're teaching, preaching, prophesying, and this and that there, it is shameful to ask people for money. It is shameful, okay? And in fact, there's probably verses in the Bible that say you should not ask for money when you're doing stuff like that, okay? But of course, one of the first things I checked with Brandon is, does he ask for money? If you click on any of his videos in the disclaimer description, it's all about money. Okay. The first lines are, for tax deductible donations in the United States, please make checks payable to, and he gives an address. Then he's got PayPal, because he's not content with just asking for money in one way, but in multiple ways. He wants to make sure that he gets people's money. Okay, then he's got a PayPal. Then he's also got a text to give. So he's giving people all sorts of options. And then a fourth option to give him money is online donations. And then a fifth option to give him money, he says, if you don't need a tax deductible receipt and would like to bless my family, email him at this one. And then he's got a sixth or seventh option called Venmo. I don't even know what that is, but wouldn't surprise me if that's another way to ask for money. First major red flag, okay? Yeah, it's not necessarily evil to say, if you want to donate, yeah, I get that. But me personally, I would feel shameful if I did that, okay? I think it's wrong to ask people for money. If someone wants to reach out to you and say, hey, I would like to donate to you, at that time, if in your heart you think, okay, sure, I'll receive it, that's different. But just having an open disclaimer on all your videos that, hey, if you want to give me money, here's 5 or 6 ways to do it, that's shameful, okay? This is the thing about Brandon Briggs a lot of people may not know, okay? He's not just a nice guy. He might seem like that, who prays a lot and hopes for good things and this and that there. He seems like that on the outside. And I fact checked this by watching a number of his videos, and I've seen him say certain things from his own mouth. Okay. So he says that he has met Jesus in person by Jesus visiting him at least 8 times. That's a major red flag. Compare that to me. I had what I honestly 100% feel was a divine encounter 18 years ago. But any one of my subscribers will know that I'm very cautious about sharing that information. I'm even still somewhat doubtful about it. And I usually remove every video that I have where I even mention those things because I have abundant caution. I don't want to say something was real when it was not. That is the trait of somebody being careful. But then compare this, and I can tell you that my experience that I had, whether real or not, was infinitely greater than anything Brandon Briggs has experienced. Infinitely. Okay? Infinitely. But anyways, Brandon Briggs says that he has met Jesus. Jesus came to him and visited him 8 times. That's a red flag. Okay? He says that he gets visions all the time. Okay? When he prays, when he closes his eyes, he gets visions all the time, he says. Really? You know, in the Bible, visions are very rare occurrences. And when they occur, they usually overcome the people. They're very, very powerful and all-encompassing. It's not just something you think or imagine in your mind, right? But anyways, he says he gets visions all the times. And he also makes countless prophecies, okay? And I watched him on video say verbatim that he tells us, the audience, quote, what Jesus told him to tell us. Now, he better get this right, because the verses that I just read at the start say that if someone tells you something claiming that God told them to say this, but God didn't tell them to say that, God's going to end that person. It's a very serious crime to God. And we have Brandon Briggs saying that he is relaying to us what Jesus told him to tell us. So he's taking it a step further in his confidence. He thinks, he's trying to tell us anyways, that he's not just out here babbling prophecies, but he's been instructed to say. He didn't even have to add that instruction part, but he did. By doing that, he's concreted himself in here. Okay? So anyways, going on. What Brandon Briggs appears to do is what's called the cold reading technique. Okay, now with these bogus psychic people and people who used to, you know, try, like on TV, try to contact dead family members in the audience, right? This is a well-known scam technique called cold reading. Okay, and it's the same essence that Brandon Briggs is doing. He's making hundreds of prophecies. When prophecies don't come true, and there has been a bunch of them, I would say virtually all of them, because he's certainly not a prophet, he deletes the videos. This has been proven by other YouTubers who've done investigation and debunking on it. Okay, they have clips of him saying certain things, and those things are no longer on his channel. They've tracked these things and noticed that when he makes a specific prophecy, I saw one about him claiming something would happen, something terrible and dark on September 3rd in America. I looked up in the news, I asked the AI, nothing bad happened on September 23rd. That's just one example. All it takes is one failed prophecy, and you're a false prophet, right? But the cold reading technique is where you go like, oh, I sent somebody in the audience. Their name begins with the letter T, because you know there's going to be someone in the audience whose name probably starts with T. Okay, I don't have time to expand on this, but read up on the cold reading technique. This is the same thing in essence that Brandon is doing. He's putting a blanket of hundreds of dubious prophecies out there, deleting the ones that don't come true, leaving all the other ones up. They're all extremely vague, so that when something happens, he can latch onto it and say, hey, I foretold that. Look at me, I'm a prophet. He's doing cold reading to the audience. Okay, that's what he's doing. Furthermore, he swears that his prophecies are legitimate, even from God directly, verbatim, and he always acts like he's 100% correct. Contrast this just for example. This is not about me, but contrast that to me. The only thing that I have ever said as a prophecy that I believe God told me is the one statement about in the future the world will see 2 suns. That one there. Right now, I don't think I have any video up on any of my channels where I discuss that. Because again, anything related to my experiences, I've removed out of abundance of caution in case maybe they weren't from God. Okay. That's what you call a responsible person. Okay. Whereas, on one of my channels, I have one copy of my old video where I talk about that prophecy, just in case it does come true. Okay. But I have very clearly, explicitly stated that abundance of caution is what I use. This is why I remove all these videos mentioning these things and so forth. But Brandon Briggs acts like he's 100% confident, like he is a fountain for this prophecy from God. Okay. That's also a worrying sign, right? But, anyways, so I just want to mention a gentleman named Mike Winger, who's on YouTube, did a 2-hour-long debunking of Brandon Briggs. I recommend that you watch it. You'll see Brandon say quite a lot of things that are questionable. But anyways, Brandon Briggs has been, apparently he's been exposed for when he makes a prophecy that doesn't happen. Like I said, he deletes the video, or if he doesn't want to delete the video or can't for some catchy reason, he will claim in a subsequent video that either he or the audience prayed away the bad thing that was going to happen. And I've seen him say this on videos, right? He prayed it away. Oh, the reason it didn't happen because I prayed it away. He foretold apparently that Pope, whoever the last Pope was, would be standing there with the Antichrist in the end days. When that Pope died, he had to make an apology video saying, well, let me correct myself. I just saw a Pope, not necessarily that Pope. Okay, it's that type of thing. Okay. The other concerning thing, this is one of the first red flags, is he makes prophecies about cryptocurrency investing. Now, I would not be surprised if this gentleman has stock in some cryptocurrencies, and that in some way, I'm not an economist or a financial advisor, but all I can say is that in some way, it wouldn't surprise me if he may potentially profit from other people investing in certain stocks. I don't know, I can't prove it, but it gives me the impression. Because what prophet of God would make prophecies about stock market investment opportunities and cryptocurrency? That's a bit ridiculous. There are a lot of videos with Brandon Briggs giving prophecy about cryptocurrencies. Okay. He talks about one called XRP. I've never even heard of it. Or he's talking about, no, I'm warning. He says it like this, like, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to do this, and I want to be careful with what I say. He basically says something like that. I'm not telling you should or you shouldn't invest in anything, but XRP is going to go up 15,000% or whatever, and it's going to be worth more than gold. And he goes on like this. It's egging people on, gullible people on to make an investment in cryptocurrencies. Okay, that is 100% false prophet, shady scam artist nonsense. 100%. Okay. There's even a channel on YouTube called something like XRP Prophecy Channel. And almost all the clips on that channel are him making prophecies about cryptocurrency. This seems like a promotion for that stock, if you ask me. Now, furthermore to this, cryptocurrency is the currency used for criminal, dark web, and even satanic and unspeakable abuse networks around the world. That is the currency that funds that. So cryptocurrency is what funds the suffering of countless individuals and children. Anybody having any association with cryptocurrency is despicable. It is supporting that network. Okay? Anyways, going on. His own disclaimer that is posted on his own videos. Okay? It's not always in the description section, but if you're looking in the search function of YouTube and you see his videos, you will see this disclaimer there. The disclaimer says, it's a legal disclaimer, where he can thereby legally avoid guilt for convincing people to invest in certain things, such as crypto stocks, okay, which he specifically literally does do. He basically eggs on people that they should invest in certain stocks at certain times, okay? This is very concerning, and I have that posted somewhere in this lineup here. It says, Mr. Brandon Biggs, aka Last Days 247, aka Prayer Changes Things Foundation, is not a financial advisor nor a registered blah, blah, blah. So he's got a legal disclaimer. Why would he have the legal disclaimer? Because he knows he will get in trouble, because what he's doing is egging people on to invest in certain things. He wants to avoid legal trouble, so he puts that disclaimer up. Red flag, false prophet. Okay? But going on. One of the other red flags that immediately told me what this guy is he mentions supernatural wealth transfer in a number of his videos. One second. Supernatural wealth transfer is a specific term used by the charlatan false preachers that are on TV. Okay, they're a type of they're a branch of Christianity called prosperity teachers. Okay, all of the famous fakes, Kenneth Copeland, whatever his name is, John or Jake Baker, something like Jim Baker, a number of them who have been, they've even gotten in trouble for defrauding people financially or whatever it is, to each their own. The most scummy, evil people on the planet out there telling people, trying to brainwash gullible, poor, victimized members of society into donating their life savings. People, what they also will do is they'll say things like, I foresee a supernatural wealth transfer, because in their mind, God is obsessed with money. They don't really believe that. They just want money from people. So they make it seem like God is obsessed with transferring money to people. And they will use other catchphrases like sow a seed, sow a seed. I mean, they're still on TV to this day doing this nonsense tripe, telling people to sow a seed of faith, pledge $1,000. So you give him $1,000 and God will give you a supernatural wealth transfer. And then they get fake people to come on saying, oh, I pledged $1,000 seed and my house mortgage got paid off by somebody out of the blue. Nonsense, scamming people. And this is what they do. These are the terms that they use. And Brandon Biggs uses that term, supernatural wealth transfer. He seems very obsessed with money. And a lot of what he does is exactly what these prosperity preachers do. Prosperity preaching is a false denomination. Most Christians know this. We don't even have to get into any theology. It is bogus nonsense. We are told that money is the root of all evil, to avoid a life of money and this and that there. And a rich person will find it very hard to get into heaven. But yet these people literally have their denomination founded on God's about money, money, money. Okay? Also, the other thing that those type of preachers do is they speak in tongues. Why? Because that way they can occupy some of your time, waste half of their TV show babbling away in the air a bunch of nonsense that utterly means nothing, and then turn around and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that revelation from God. This is what they do. Okay? And I didn't know that he spoke in tongues like that. I watched a bunch of his videos. Let's say they're an hour long. He'll spend half an hour babbling into the air. His wife is sitting next to him. The other suspicious thing is his wife, as far as I've seen, never adds any verbal input. She sits there like a puppet or a plant. No disrespect to her, but she just sits there like she's being told, okay, sit next to me, don't say anything. That's what it comes across like. She's not like, adding conversation to it like other ministers' wives do on streams, right? But he'll sit there babbling in tongues and then act like it was the most amazing revelation. And then he'll tell you what he thinks it means. But the scripture tells us that speaking in tongues means foreign languages. And if you were to speak in tongues that somebody can't understand, it's pointless babble unless you have somebody directly interpreting it. Brandon Biggs does not have somebody there interpreting it. It has to be somebody else other than the one speaking. So everything he's doing is against biblical, the biblical way. Also, he makes prophecies on really meaningless and vague things, like I said before. He's always making utterly vague and pointless prophecies that serve no purpose whatsoever. He even had a video where one of the prophecies he talked about was a beef shortage. Now, I'm sure that there are greater things to be concerned about than a beef shortage. I'm pretty sure that God didn't reach out to this prophet to warn us about a beef shortage in America. That's ridiculous. Okay? He also directly promotes other prosperity teachers like Jim Baker. That's another red flag. Brandon Biggs is a prosperity teacher. Prosperity teachers, I'm almost convinced they must go to a school where they get trained on how to speak. They speak in charismatic ways to capture gullible and poor members of society who are desperate and need help. And they get hooked in bait and sinker with this charisma and the way they talk. And because all the prosperity teachers operate in the same way, even have the same way that they speak and the same type of things that they say. They must be going to a school and getting trained by some scammer on how to scam others. Okay, but he promotes other prosperity teachers who took money from people, such as Jim Bakker. So Brandon Biggs has a video where he's talking about and promoting Jim Bakker's food buckets, because Jim Bakker, who's gone to prison, and Jim Bakker, I think, went to prison again, but he got in a lot of trouble for scamming people, essentially. Okay. I thought I had posted the thing here, but he did get in trouble. I can't remember what it was exactly. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick. I don't want to be late. I'm already late as it. I'm really late as it is, so I got to go quickly. But because I mentioned him by name, I just want to make sure. So yes, so Jim Bakker got into significant legal trouble primarily for fraud and conspiracy related to his television ministry in the 1980s. Okay, financial fraud. Deceiving people out of money. So anyways, Jim Bakker also used to warn these people that the end of days was coming and that they need to buy his food buckets to be prepared. Food buckets cost $400 and something each. And they look like garbage slop, whether they taste delicious or not. Who in their right mind pays $450 for a bucket of food? Okay? And that in itself isn't evil, but when most of your audience are poor or desperate people, and you're trying to tell them, hey, be scared, the end is coming, you're going to have no food for a period of time, hey, you can buy my buckets of food, they're $400 a bucket. And the guy doing that went to jail and got in trouble for scamming people and defrauding people and financial crimes. Red flag. Okay, so Brandon Briggs promoted the Jim Bakker food buckets. What does it tell you? Next, Brandon Briggs is on camera admitting that at his church, there are like 10,000 people following and whatever. And Brandon Briggs proudly said that because certain people were following his teachings, some of them did the right scriptural thing and sold their homes. So Brandon Briggs is not just getting money from people, he's convincing people, whether directly or indirectly, to sell their homes is part of some necessary spiritual step. This is evil. I mean, that's just unspeakable, right? And he didn't just do this and keep it under the rug. He's out there on video talking about it like he's proud of it. He even referenced, as the scripture says we should do, something to that extent. I saw him say it myself. This is what Harold Camping did. Harold Camping may not have been doing what he did on purpose out of evil. I think Harold Camping was just deluded, thinking that he was right and was urging people to do whatever. But you should never do those type of things. Okay? Jim Bakker, that Biggs promoted, was indicted on 24 counts of fraud and conspiracy in 1988. Okay? And Brandon Biggs has a massive half-page long or one page, depending on the size of your text, disclaimer, legal disclaimer. And this is his disclaimer on all his videos. Brandon Biggs, it says, this video is for entertainment purposes only. I mean, if you're a real prophet of God, are you going to say that? No. It says, Brandon Biggs, not a financial advisor or a registered securities advisor. Therefore, Brandon Biggs' opinions on the market, stocks, and commodities are his own. Why would that even be in there? Because Brandon Biggs talks about investing in stocks, markets, and commodities. Is that something that a biblical prophet does? No. But he says this is for entertainment purposes only and cannot be construed as a solicitation to buy and sell securities, commodities, and or cryptocurrencies. This video represents the opinion and analysis of Mr. Brandon Biggs based on the data available to him at the time of his writing and is for entertainment purposes only. Mr. Brandon Biggs' opinions are his own and for entertainment purposes only and are not a recommendation to offer or buy or to sell securities, commodities, and or cryptocurrencies. He's obviously paid a lawyer to write this, okay? Mr. Brandon Biggs is independent and receives no compensation of any kind from any groups, individuals, or corporations. As trading and investing in any financial markets may involve serious risk of loss, Mr. Brandon Biggs recommends that you consult with a qualified investment advisor, one licensed, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So that's enough evidence, but I also end on this cautionary note. Brandon Biggs talks about an antichrist at the end of days. Brandon Biggs also says that all aliens are demons. Brandon Biggs also says that He has seen in his visions that aliens are going to come and take the duped Christians off the planet and basically off the punishments for being duped Christians, and it's going to be a fake rapture. I don't have time to talk about these things. They are major red flags. They go against everything that I've taught and proven scripturally. So when I talk about things, I prove it with my videos, with hundreds of verses, depending on which scenario, and I've got it in my systematic theology. Brandon Biggs does not do that. He does not offer up scriptural evidence to back up his claims. He says he sees it in a vision. Okay? The Antichrist is not mentioned in the Bible. I say this in my teachings and in my book with evidence in the scripture. Jesus himself told us that the Antichrist was on the earth in his day while he was alive on the planet. Jesus also said that there are many Antichrists. Nowhere in the Bible does it anywhere say that there is a singular Antichrist figure, and it does not say that there will be one at the end of days. It is unbiblical. That's all I have time to get into. When Christians teach that there will be an Antichrist at the end of days, what you will typically find, because they all seem to lump into this category, is that these are people who believe that there's going to be an initial rapture, then 7 years of woe under an Antichrist on the earth until the end. Okay, these people believe that there are 2 raptures, that there are 2 judgment periods, 2 cosmic battles, 2 resurrections, a double of everything. None of that is biblical. I talk about that in my videos and in my book with scriptural evidence to back it up. There is only one set of everything. There is not a fake rapture. The Bible does not tell us there is going to be a fake rapture. All of this is unbiblical, but he's in that group that believes that nonsense. That nonsense is based on Daniel 9, where it talks about the 490-year prophecy. It says that from Artaxerxes' decree to the death of the Messiah is 483 years. The final 7 years takes place right after that. It's 490 years. It's not 2,490 years. It's 490 years. But what this group of people does, they say, oh, well, I want this final 7-year period to be about an Antichrist at the end of days. And I want there to be 7 years of an Antichrist at the end of days. Why anybody would want that, I don't know, because it's not biblical. So they snip off the 7-year, final 7 years, fast forward 2,000 years later and say, oh, it's going to take place at the end of time. There is no basis to do this, no basis in scripture to validate that reasoning. It's illogical, it's ridiculous, it's stupid, and it's unbiblical. End of story. There is no 7-year period at the end of days. There is no Antichrist at the end of days. The Antichrist beast kingdom was Islam. Okay, it is not an individual figure. Okay, the teaching that all aliens are demons is wrong. Okay, yes, fallen angels are extraterrestrials, but there's angels who are extraterrestrials. I, again, have proven this with multiple videos. It's in my systematic theology. It's also in my End Days book with scripture on the page to back it up that that is not biblically true. Okay, the host of the heaven who live in other worlds in the cosmos that God created, they are what is called messengers. Messengers was rendered into English when the Latin language came around as angels. Okay, angels are not spirit people with bird wings. They are beings that inhabit the heavens. The heavens is where the sun, moon, and stars are, according to the Bible. I've said this so many times. Okay, so when people say that all aliens are demons, that is unbiblical. It is dangerous. You're demonizing the aliens. You're demonizing the angels. When Jesus returns at the end of the days, he comes with the legions of heaven, the celestial host, and all of that, many of which are going to be extraterrestrials, good, angelic extraterrestrials. And if you're demonizing the angels as demons, do you think you're going to get saved? I don't think so. So be very, very careful with this satanic deception, okay? So just please be careful, everybody. And to my long-term loyal subscriber, know that I'm doing this out of love and brotherly love, and not just to bash what you choose to believe, or just out here to bash Mr. Biggs. This is about separating the wolves from the sheep and just helping each other out. That's all it is. I gotta go. Take care, folks. God bless.